You're back in with Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We've been talking about summertime adventures and destinations, and one that you've just got to go to is Mount Rainier National Park in Washington State. And if you go there, you've got to do some hiking. That's why we have Mary Skjelset on board with us today. She and co-author Heidi Redlinski have written a couple of books about hiking in Mount Rainier National Park that are published by Falcon Guides. Mary, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Let's get right to it. Mount Rainier National Park, very popular destination, probably right up there with Crater Lake in terms of popularity for the most popular parks in Oregon, Washington State. When it comes to getting there and staying there, what are the options? I mean, I know there's an inn at Paradise, there's an inn at Longmire, but is there anywhere else to stay besides those two places?
There absolutely are many options for where to stay, but you have to think of the park not as a whole park in deciding where to stay and how to stay, but sort of four quadrants. So there's Carbon River, which is in the northwest side of the park, the Sunrise area, which is in northeast, Ohanapecosh, which is southeast, and Longmire, which is southwest. And your options vary based on where you want to go, and you really need to decide what your destination is first.
And I love the fact that you actually break down your hikes in hiking Mount Rainier National Park that way too, by region, because I think that by and large, the vast majority of people who visit the park going through, the Nisqually entrance, and they go straight through Longmire up to Paradise, and then they go back the same way, and they just leave most of the park untouched, don't they?
Exactly right. I think Nisqually entrance station has by far the most visitors, and most people are heading straight to Paradise to hike there. And there are some great hikes in Paradise, but the whole park has amazing hikes. And because there's a giant mountain right in the middle of it, you can't just simply drive through the park. So you really have to approach each quadrant from a different angle. And therefore, where you stay is different.
All right. So plenty of campgrounds to stay at is kind of what we were getting at. Are there any other inns besides the two I mentioned at Longmire or Paradise, or are those two it in Mount Rainier National Park?
Within the park, that is it. And honestly, the public lodging options in little towns outside the park are kind of few and far between, too. But I would check at Ashford, which is near the Nisqually entrance station, Packwood, which is just south of the Stevens Canyon entrance station, and then Buckley would have some. That's more toward the Carbon River area in the northwest. But all of those places are a little bit far. Ashford, not as much, from the entrance stations. So I think the best option if you want to get in and hiking immediately is to stay at one of the campgrounds that are in the park. That would be Cougar Rock, which is sort of between the Nisqually Ranger Station and Paradise, or the Ohanapecosh Campground, which is right near the Stevens Canyon entrance station, or the White River Campground, which is a first-come, first-served campground in Sunrise. And honestly, Sunrise, I think, is my favorite quadrant of the park.
Okay.
If I had to choose among my children.
All right. What's your favorite easy day hike to a lake in Mount Rainier National Park or in the Sunrise area?
That's a great question. Probably my favorite easy, and it is very easy, day hike to a lake, is Snow Lake in the Paradise region. Really lovely valleys with flowers, mountain valleys with flowers, and then you get to a tarn, and it's in the Tatoosh Range, which is just rugged and gnarly. But then if you turn around in the middle of the meadows, you can see Mount Rainier to your south. So that's probably my favorite, very easy day hike to a lake. Then Crystal Lake is fantastic also in the Sunrise area.
All right. Tell our listeners about that hike.
Crystal Lake hike is off of Highway 410. It's outside of the entrance station, so sometimes people think they don't have to pay to hike it, but you actually do. It's a little bit of a gnarly climb in the beginning, and then it levels off a little bit. And the lake itself is just really lovely. Turquoise waters. We've seen a ton of tadpoles and frogs in the outcropping bodies of water. And then there's an option to hike up to Crystal Peak from there, which has really stunning views in all directions. It's a tough climb, though.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like an easy day hike at all, but it sounds like a beautiful destination. Folks, you're listening to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. We're talking to Mary Skjelset. She is the author of Hiking Mount Rainier National Park and also the author of Best Easy Day Hikes, Mount Rainier National Park, with co-author Heidi Redlinsky. So we've talked about some day hikes. Let's talk about a multi-day hike that folks ought to enjoy. And I think when it comes to Mount Rainier, everyone thinks of the Wonderland Trail that goes around the base of Mount Rainier, but I'm guessing there's some other multi-day hikes there as well.
There are. I am not only a sucker for lookouts, I'm also a sucker for loops. And although Wonderland Trail is a loop, it is a giant loop that takes an insane amount of planning and training. But there's another loop that's an option, which also is very rigorous. There are not many multi-day hikes on Mount Rainier that are not extremely rigorous due to the geology of the mountain. But the northern loop and the northern, in between, bridging sort of Sunrise and Carbon River is really spectacular. But it's tough. Where you get to go there is through Berkeley Park, which has incredible flowers. If you hit it right, it's just every square inch is just covered with burgeoning life of flowers and bees. And you head down toward Grand Park. I would definitely take the side trip to Grand Park. Grand Park goes on forever. It's like a giant plateau in the middle of Mount Rainier. It's stunning. I've never seen anything like it. There's nothing else like it in the park.
Wow.
Expansive views. You can camp there if you get a cross-country camping permit. You have to be very careful, certain distance from the trail, certain distance from a body of water, but then you can wake up to the sunrise on Mount Rainier because that's the side of the sunrise, and it's really lovely. But the ups and downs are really hard, especially on the northern side of the loop, coming down from Yellowstone Cliffs toward Carbon River.
Not an easy hike, but it sounds like the payoff is just spectacular. One other question before we go here, and that's the logistics of camping on a multi-day hike. I mean, you mentioned that you have to get a permit, but I'm guessing there's a lot of people who are hiking, and there's probably not a lot of campgrounds, especially if you're doing that Wonderland Trail, that 93-mile trail around the base of Mount Rainier. Is it pretty tough to find a place to pitch a tent?
Yes. Well, it's tough to reserve a campsite at a designated camp area along the Wonderland Trail. And if you're doing more than a certain length, you can't get of the Wonderland Trail, you can't get a first-come, first-serve site.
I see.
So the other option, like I said previously, is to do cross-country camping. I know not everybody feels comfortable doing that, and it should only be reserved for people who don't need a pit toilet and know how to do no-trace camping. I've had a lot of luck with that. It is a possibility, and you have to watch a little video. They have to know and trust that you can make sure that you're not leaving anything behind, that you're not going to damage the terrain. But there are always options. And when you get away from the Wonderland Trail, there's usually a spot. I mean, Mount Rainier is very visited, but it's very visited mostly on the weekends.
Right.
You go in the middle of the week, you're in luck. You don't have nearly as much traffic. You're much more likely to get a site. You can almost always, there are more and more people, but I've almost always had luck at the White River Campground, getting a first-come, first-served site, and then you're right in the thick of it at sunrise.
All right. Well, we are going to have to go, but folks, I hope we've gotten you excited about visiting literally one of the crown jewels of America, Mount Rainier National Park, and going hiking when you get there with some great suggestions. If you want more suggestions and lots of other great information, pick up a copy of Mary's book. Her and Heidi Redlinsky wrote Hiking Mount Rainier National Park, published by Falcon Guides, and Best Easy Day Hikes, Mount Rainier National Park. You can get them both through Amazon.com and at your local bookstore, too. Mary, thanks for sharing this with us today on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure.